Welcome back. We're going to do a review of Raystorm now, aka Layer Section 2 for the Sega Saturn. What I'm going to do, a little bit different this time, is compare the arcade version, which was known as Raystorm, which I'm playing here on the PS2 under Taito Legends 2, with the Saturn version, and you'll see some subtle differences in graphics, which I hope you will find interesting. And this is really in response to G Minty Fresh's review of Layer Section 2, where he did point out that there were some subtle differences between the two games. There was also a PS1 version, and on the PS1 version there was an extra mode with enhanced graphics apparently. But you'll see already that the Saturn graphics are slightly flatter and less colourful than the arcade. Certainly there seems to be a lot more colour to the arcade version, a lot more lighting, and the sound effects are also a bit better. But hey, I'm a Saturn fan, so I'm not complaining. The Saturn version plays pretty well. So basically, what we got here is a sequel to Rayforce, aka Layer Section. One of my favourite shooters for the Saturn, and one which I gave a pretty high mark to in my recent review. Whereas Layer Section was a traditional 2D shooter, albeit with some very nice parallax, Layer Section 2 takes it into 3D. This was in 1996, so 3D was still quite relatively new in games at that point, and certainly a new thing for the shoot 'em up genre. And I think at the time people were dead impressed. By the way, notice that nice bit of parallax isn't present in the Saturn version, just there over the brow of the hill. You might want to replay that. So what you had was a 3D shooter with a slightly awkward sort of 3D play area that you get on games like Nano Stray and the like. I don't like 3D isometric style play areas. Not a fan. I prefer 2D. One of the worst things about this game is the fact your ship moves so bloody slowly across the screen. It takes about 10 seconds to move from the left corner to the right corner, which I think is daft. Shoot 'em up should be snappy and fun and quick. Having said that, things pick up on level 3, which is where your ship goes into orbit. Unlike the first game, where you pass from an alien sort of planet through into space and then down onto Earth, this one starts off on Earth, goes through space, and then ends up on the alien planet. Don't ask me what the story is. But the bit in space is actually really nice. Obviously, you'll recognise the graphics and ships, etc., from the first version, and I think this is probably the most successful level that I've played. There are 8 levels in total. Maybe 7. That's a lovely scene, that, when the camera swings around to Earth and then to the alien planet there. Absolutely gorgeous. So you got 3 ships, only 2 ships on Raystorm, the arcade. You get a bonus ship on the home ports. The ships have this lock-on system like the first one. By the way, this is a sort of cutscene you get at the beginning of every level in the Saturn version. Quite nice. They have a lock-on system, which I'm not a fan of. I used auto mode as opposed to manual mode. A lot of the time, most of the crap flying around the screen has to be locked onto. So, you know, whilst you would love to just shoot away with your actual bullets, your bullets don't hit anything, and you've got to wait for the lock-on to actually make contact. It doesn't feel very instantaneous. There's not a lot of feedback. What more to say? Some of the bosses are quite nice. They've got a slight radiant silver gun feel to them. I'm not sure which came first, but I think in the day seeing a boss flying around in 3D like this was probably pretty mind-blowing, to be honest, back in '96. It doesn't look so great now, but I can appreciate just how cool it did look back in the day. And sometimes, you know, the backgrounds swinging around in 3D, that looks pretty impressive, quite dynamic. But, you know, overall, I think the 3D is a bit of a flop. It doesn't add much to the gameplay. In fact, Layer Section 1 is considered by most people to be a much better game than the sequel. I wouldn't recommend this if you're looking for Saturn shoot 'em ups. This would be near the bottom of the list. Just get the PS2 or PS1 version. Anyway, time for some scores, as I am actually reviewing the Saturn version of Layer Section 2. Not my best set of scores. Graphics I've given a 7, sound a 6. The tunes are a little bit feeble and the sound effects are not good on the Saturn version, not as good as the arcade. Playability 5. Value for money 7, because it's still not one of the more expensive games. I'll give it overall a 6. Gary hasn't been helping today because he's still growing his tash, but he will be back shortly with another Saturn review. Thanks for watching.